Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of Hearthside. I'm Owen. I'm going to be the one that's with you today. Today is going to be a little more impromptu. We're not going to have as scripted of a show today. We're really just going to be taking a look here with an update of the Russo-Ukraine war, looking at where the lines are. Right now, we have a live map up. I'll go ahead and shrink my little webcam here. Now, we are seeing the front lines starting to stabilize. Most of the gains Ukraine had from last summer in this area have overall held. Where we've seen kind of Russian lines kind of push the most has been around Bakhmut and Avdiivka. And so that's nothing really new. Now, what seems to be new is up here near Kharkiv. Russians have taken a small chunk, but Ukraine has deployed reinforcements as of yesterday or today, depending on what the time zone difference is at this point. But I know that they have deployed more troops to Kharkiv. They are starting to receive aid now that the bill has passed. So we are going to see probably some fires in their pacing pick up. They will have more artillery. They're getting more HIMARS rockets. We'll take a look at a fact sheet that kind of shows what everything is broken down as and what we are going to see provided through that funding, at least so far that's announced through that bill. Now, one thing of note, and which was touched on yesterday, is this is the peninsula of Crimea here, something that was in control. Anything that you see outlined in black, this map is the live map from the Institute of the Study of War. Anything in the black outlines here, that is what was controlled. So before the current conflict. So from the 2014 Crimean and Donbass war, that is what these areas here with Donetsk, these areas inside here and Crimea, that is what Russia gained from their 2014 conquest here. Now, they've kind of held true overall to the bulk of what's left that they have gotten from the start of this current conflict from 2022 around Luhansk. Their biggest capture was Avdiivka and Bakhmut over here. So, there's still heavy fighting here, continuous. As you can see, there has been some breaching over here and here. And so that is a little more new. Russians either got pushed back in this, and Ukrainians were able to penetrate, or the Russians are claiming to have started to push forward. But from the looks of it, Ukraine was able to penetrate the lines around this village. And if I remember correctly, they did have some ground gaining and claimed to gain some more along these small tributary rivers. They did claim to gain a little more than what's shown, but the Institute of the Study of War is probably the most factual for what the lines are that I've come across. It takes a lot of streams of data. This is a U.S.-based military think tank. Now, we have seen Crimea. There's a couple new areas around here where they've pierced, but Crimea has been very hotly contested since 2023. Lots of fighting has been happening in the forests around this city. Ukraine has been trying to push hard because if they can cut off Crimea, Severodonetsk will have some of its northern supply lines cut. So I would be surprised if we didn't see anything renewed within the next couple months, because both Russia and Ukraine will be trying to mount some pretty heavy offensives, and really Russia's already kicked some of theirs off. And so it'd be interesting to see if Ukraine can make another feint tactic like they did in 2022 to make the big push that took a lot of what was taken over here in the Kharkiv region. So it'll be interesting to see. Now, what to me would be the most damaging to the Russian war effort is if they can separate Crimea and pretty much from, if they can get essentially either a line down to Berdyansk, I think from where they're at here near Robotna, or is that Robotna? No, this is Yodozain. I'm sorry. Here, at least in this region, you know, there's some ground being regained here near Svetomayorsk and Yodozain by the Russians. I mean, the fact that there was as much delay as there was to Ukraine aid really hurt the efforts that Ukraine pushed forward. Robotna's here. Yep. Yeah. So, Robotna, if they could push here and get to Tokmak, and maybe even drive like a wedge down here towards the Black Sea and try to cut off some of these supply lines from Melitopol over here to the east, you know, it would force Russia to decide whether or not to keep forces that are pushing this Kharkiv front here. You know, it could divert some of their resources away and maybe give these guys over here in the east a breather. I mean, they have just been getting hammered. I mean, if you look at any of the footage that is coming from this conflict, at this point, it looks like World War I battlefields mixed with a postmodern just hellscape. It's horrendous. I mean, the scale of destruction is absolutely appalling. And so I just don't see how, if that, because really Kherson, I feel like they could deploy the largest contingent across with what they have now for bridge laying capability, because they still have this bridgehead. This bridgehead's still strong, which really is a testament to them being able to get supplies and being able to maintain this. I mean, they were at one point threatening up here in these small villages here in Kozachi Rai and Krinky. Ukraine had troops operating, and it looks like they still control a small portion of Krinky right here. So they're not out of this fight in Kherson in the sense of offensively. You know, they're more defensive in the east, but in the southeast and south, they have a much better footing, I feel, because I feel like a lot of Russia's main force pool is between Tokmak and up here, you know, between and Bakhmut, because they're trying to push Kharkiv. So we are going to see things kind of pick up as we hit these warmer months. And we're already seeing that on the Russian side. I mean, really what will decide the pace of Ukrainian ops at this point going forward is going to be supply of ammunition. If ammunition can start getting more steadily available to Ukraine, they have the ability and the skill to push fast and swift enough and decisively enough to gain ground. Because the only reason why the Russians can gain a footing is they're just willing to throw endless bodies and resources at the problem, just like they have every other war that they've been a part of. Throw resources at it until it's no longer a problem. And so I would be surprised if we don't see more forces of Russia, and these ground forces may try to cross on the Kerch Bridge. But with the TACMs that are being supplied, I have a feeling we might start seeing more damage done to the Kerch Bridge here in the coming months. I think it's going to take a little more seeding operations in order to really get that done. I think once they have first deliveries of F-16, because now they're claiming through some media outlets that they'll start receiving first deliveries by the end of July. And so that puts it on a timescale that really would give them enough time to take advantage of the weather, use what aircraft they have currently to prep and do seeding operations. I mean, they've clearly shown that they can land amphibious assaults here in Crimea. Now, how much more they'll be able to do of that, I don't know, because Russia has started fortifying, at least the shorelines a little more. They're at least watching them more closely, because Ukraine has pulled off some pretty absolutely insane feats over this war. So we will probably, as soon as they probably receive that first shipment from the UK on more Scalp and missiles and Storm Shadow, because I know France has been trying to deliver more and more artillery, it's going to take that and the U.S. deliveries to really kind of ramp up their pace. That's really the big thing. Now, I want to take a look here at a Reuters article from today, actually. It's from about 5 hours ago. It looks like they're going to go ahead and start sending $400 million in aid of the part of that $95 billion package. So Ukraine aid with this, it looks like they're going to be getting artillery, some air defense munitions for the NASAMS. Looks like some more anti-tank munitions, armored vehicles, small arms, and those are immediately going to be able to go into effect. I mean, that's obvious. And so, let's see. As part of the $95 billion aid bill, yep. Congress authorized $60.8 worth of various forms of aid to Ukraine, including $8 worth of PDA. So, there was something I saw in here that was fairly interesting. Now, a lot of this does benefit the United States defense market, because a lot of these contracts, as you see here, as replenishment funds for articles drawn from stocks are deployed, U.S. defense companies would gain more contracts as this war continues. And so this is something that in the short term may not seem very beneficial to the United States because we're emptying our stores. However, we are first giving them things slated to be retired. What this does is it gives the United States the ability to expand the defense apparatus to be prepared for large-scale attritional warfare. I mean, as we are seeing through the pace at which the absolute burn rate of munitions is, it's astounding, absolutely astounding how much has really been gone through in just a short amount of time. Now, this is what I really wanted to touch on through this video, because I know I'm a little late. I've had some delays on my end, so I do apologize. But, you know, the DoD could have already supplied munitions and arms and armament to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan, but it had to have been released by Congress. Now, I'm not going to touch on anything when it comes to Israel in this video. I plan on doing a breakdown for either Israel or Taiwan in the next video. So I'm going to do that as one topic just to cover really everything that's going on. Those will be more in depth. This is definitely going to be something that's more shorter in our format than what I'll be really trying to put out regularly. But this is important. I mean, we have not really, a lot of people have not grasped the brevity of what this means, not only for the U.S., but for all of our European partners. We have had a commitment to NATO since its founding. Article 5 has only ever been enacted once, and that was 9/11. The U.S. received help from its allies. We were met with a coalition of even many nations outside of NATO. Japan, South Korea, countries even in the Indo-Pacific that are not, subject to that. They came to our help afterwards. And so there's a risk more now than ever that there could be a second call of Article 5. And it would be against a nuclear armed nation. It is something that people need to truly make sure that, this is something that we pay attention to. And because if Ukraine falls, if the rhetoric is to believed, NATO will move in. They'd have to. There's no way that they could sit on the sidelines because Russia has already come out and stated next targets are the Baltic nations, Poland, Estonia, Latvia, Romania. These are all NATO allies, NATO partners. That would cause Article 5. All-out war. And so we've had a lot of people that have been trying very hard to avoid this. Now, France has already stated that they will go into Ukraine with troops without enacting Article 5 and are willing to go in on their own if two requirements are met. That Russia has broken all of the lines, like the front lines, and they're pushing, and Ukraine requests the aid. That's even if Article 5 is not being drawn in, eventually it's going to pull the rest of NATO in. Poland is arming itself. Finland just joined. Sweden just joined. Now we have an even larger border that we need to defend. Now, this is not just U.S. troops, but we are at a point where it's very critical, where we have now, instead of tyrants that we're fighting, not that are either non-nuclear or before nuclear weapons ever existed, we are on the closest point of human history that I can point to, in my opinion, that could lead to all-out global annihilation due to nuclear conflict. We've got China being very belligerent with Taiwan. Now, there's a good possibility that their invasion has been delayed due to corruption issues and the mismanagement of military spending and, just to put it bluntly, poor training and just lack of discipline for Chinese soldiers. So it's a very good thing that this bill was passed, but it was passed very very late. And I really hope it was not too late. Now, whatever you feel of either Biden or Trump does not matter. Because what is said here, this is directly in the United States' national security interest. And that's a fact. Because we will be drawn into a European conflict if Russia wins in Ukraine. It's already been stated by Russia. And I believe that it was either Polish or Moldovan or Latvian. I want to say it was one of the Eastern Bloc countries, probably a NATO-aligned one, but said that Russia's ready to take on NATO now in a small conflict. Like, they've already prepared enough to do it. Now, most of the European partners agree, but they state it's 3 to 5 years away. Either way, it's still coming. China wants to invade Taiwan by 2027 at the earliest. That's when Xi has said for their army to be ready by, is like 2030, I think. So it is scary to see how close we are coming. Now, like I pointed out before with 9/11, we'd have no choice but to come to their aid. Just like our NATO allies came to our aid after the September 11th attacks. That's why we are supporting and surging support now to Ukraine, to stop Putin from drawing the United States into a war in Europe. Plain and clear. That is what's at risk if Ukraine loses. No matter if it's a whole continent away or not. And so, I pray every day that it is something that we don't have to worry about, and it's just going to be the Lend-Lease. But we have yet to see if that is what it will be. Now, they did touch on humanitarian aid for Haiti and other things for like the Gazan humanitarian aid. So there are other things that will be touched on in the next couple episodes. But let's get into this fact sheet here, where it's kind of stating, we're going to break it down and go over kind of what's being done, what's going to help, and what's also come out lately, because there's been some other things that have been bought from the U.S. to be given to Ukraine over the last couple days. And so, big thing here, air defense is what we're going to focus on first. These are very important pieces of equipment that are going to ensure that Ukraine is able to stay in the fight. Big thing is another Patriot defense battery and munitions. Now, the Patriot SAM is a very, very expensive system, but it's damn good. I mean, the more it shoots down, the better the rest of the Patriot network gets. So, not only is Ukraine getting the top-of-the-line systems in order to maintain security, they're bettering our own by using them. The NASAMS systems, the National Advanced Surface-to-Air Missile System, another 12 is huge. That will plug some gaps and really help a lot when it comes to some of their more pressing areas to kind of prevent like what had happened last month with the loss of their largest geothermal plant. So that's going to be really useful to help. They've got vampire countermeasures. That's like a truck bed mounted anti-air system. And then these AIM-7s, these RIM-7s and AIM-9Ms, those are older missiles that are probably getting ready to be decommissioned and are being used for what they call the Frankensam project. And that was really just peace. They did the same thing, in the Cold War with other conflicts where they helped kind of piecemeal together with anti-air missiles and whatever platform could hold them. And so it's been a good way to fill those medium range gaps that are necessary to be filled. And they're more mobile, so they can take those things to the front and are able to help prevent Russian air power from overwhelming forces on the ground. Because really, until Ukraine gets all their F-16s, and they've got them relatively safe, because, there's only so much they can hide from, the Russian airspace in the sense of where they're launching jets from. So I think that's what's going to really make the difference, is having that better air power and it being a comparable avionics system, at least to what Russia's flying, to where they're on par at minimum of technical specification capability. Now, another 21 air surveillance radars, those ASRs, are going to come very helpful for early warning. So I have seen a lot of things that touched on that. That's one of the biggest things that they're lacking in, besides just the defensive capability of itself of just shooting it down, is being able to see it. NATO has provided a lot of radar coverage and help in regards to some of that. And so this will take some of the burden off of the planes being flown close to the front of at least the borders from NATO nation and Ukraine. Now, another thing that's going to help with mobility is going to be, where is it? I think I saw something about more Stingers. I don't know. Yeah, I don't see it. But I believe they got more Stinger systems, and they restarted that production line because of the war. They had to bring people out of retirement just to be able to restart that. So it does help that these things are coming back online, because then it gives the U.S. the ability to have means of quantity and quality production of these systems, not only to be able to supply allies, but to be able to maintain stocks necessary for a modern war of attrition. Now, here below with the fires, you are going to see something very, very helpful, and what's going to truly put things where they need to be in order for Ukraine to start doing something. Because if you look at it, air power is not what's been deciding this war. It's been artillery. Artillery has allowed both sides to move in very, very large distances at times, or be able to suppress attacks, or to be able to even just soften a target enough to where even if they didn't use much artillery, it would have been enough to straight up cause a difference of the result of how those operations will commence. Now, they are getting another 2 million artillery shells and another almost 200 howitzers. That's going to help get more parity with Russian fires. Now, the GLSDBs, they have given those to them already before. Not seen much use of them in the sense of large scale. Don't think they've been helping as much, just because Ukraine's probably using them more in of a defensive posture. You see more of the cluster bombs being used, either like right as they're about to storm a position, or very heavily as infantry is being poured in at their defensive lines. So I think that's really where these GLSDBs are coming into the most benefit, because it kind of gives them enough of a dispersal area that, if they wait for the first couple vehicles to dismount, and as they're turning around, FPVs have proven very capable of taking out these armored vehicles, but those cluster bombs are going to soften the amount of enemy personnel that are charging at Ukrainian lines. And so, like the 7,000 precision-guided artillery rounds, those are going to be very helpful for both defense and certain offensive measures, because I could see those being used with part of their seeding operations, with they using glide bombs to then be able to, take out air defenses, radars, maybe counter battery. Those 7,000 precision rounds are going to be very helpful when doing counter battery fire, because those are GPS guided. So that will make them much more precise and be able to help prevent a large-scale retaliation from the Russians, and has proven quite effective for them. Now, they are getting, looks like, 40,000 155 millimeter rounds of. So they are getting more of the RAM systems. Now, these are mines that are launched with a 155 millimeter artillery round, and the casing around it. Eventually, it will split and drops a bunch of mines. Those have proven very effective in stopping Russian columns. So I think those will be put to very good use in covering ground. Let's just say, because Russia has done this quite a bit too, where they clear a lane, and then before the vehicles and the troops even leave, behind them, essentially Ukraine lays mines with these or other drones, in order to essentially subvert any clearing operation that Russian engineers did. So it's proven, in the deoccupied territories by Ukraine, it's proven very, very hard to really find everything, especially with how many traps Russians have set inside homes. It's very, very tough to really get all of that. Now, they are getting another 72 105 millimeter howitzers as well, with 800,000 more rounds. So these are going to be more for these lighter weight towed artilleries that are going to be a lot easier for smaller platoons or even brigades to be able to move with, to have closer to the front and be more mobile with. Now, I think it's not going to be as effective immediately, because they're going to have to get these in place, and you are going to lose some more often than not as they get in, due to them being spotted and getting hit with counter battery. So I'd say they'll probably, off the bat, you'll probably see them lose at least 5 or 6, a half dozen for sure, just because Ukraine's going to be trying to move some of their positions around, trying to make sure it's harder for them to take out. But in that, when they're in the open, they're sitting out. That's how those HIMARS got damaged finally. It took them almost 2.5 years to damage some, but they did damage some because they were out in the open. And so they've always kept those on the move, and that's what has allowed them to keep such a high number of them from getting damaged. Now, the ground maneuvers, I did not personally know the numbers on yet, but I didn't know they were getting more Abrams. So they're getting a whole nother, I think that's a platoon. It's either a platoon or that's a brigade. It's essentially one tank unit's worth of tanks. So the U.S. operates 31 tanks per unit of tanks. So I don't remember what exactly the unit is titled. It's been a little bit, if it's at the company level, the brigade level, or if it's at platoon level. I'm not sure. I'm fairly certain it's either company or brigade level. So either way, I mean, Russia's only taken out, I think, 2 of the last ones we gave them. So that means they are going to have a sizable force if they wanted to use those as a spear. Because not only that, they're getting 45 T-72Bs that we sourced probably from either former Soviet allies or former Soviet nations, and another 200 Bradleys. They have made excellent use of the Bradley fighting vehicle since being given the Bradleys. And they have shown that they can use them very, very well. I mean, hell, a Bradley took on a T-90 alone and won. And they didn't even use tow missiles. They were just firing the 25 millimeter chain gun, the Bushmaster chain gun. I mean, if they can make that much use of it and are able to really provide a key difference, those are the things that I want to see provided, because that's what's going to make the most difference on the battlefield for those fighting. Now, the 4 additional Bradley Fire Support Team vehicles, I believe, is what Ukraine has been using a lot for extraction of not only the Bradleys, but if they have, a lot of wounded, I've seen them kind of come in with Bradleys and some support vehicles to evac those, because they do have really good armor packages that have been working very well, like those removable armor sections. I mean, there was pictures in 2023 I'd have to try to find, but they had tank rounds hit, and you could see like where it came in on the side and exited from the Bradley, but no one died. It only took out, the one little back section of plates, and so it was like the back corner, and it deflected it and then went back out that corner, so you only had damage on that corner. So they're able to use these to great effect and have very good anti-tank capability with the tow missiles as well. And they've made immense use of them. Now, the Strikers I've not seen used as much, just because they are a lot lighter armored. So they're more of just a lightly armored APC. I think those will be more useful for them, and they will probably end up using them as a recon element, or even like maybe in conjunction with the kind of like the light recon tank that they got from the French. I could see them using those in conjunction with that, if they were going to do like small raiding teams, even, kind of give them that extra boom and quick in and out, because they're both wheeled. So I could see those coming in handy for smaller ops. Now, they have been making use a lot of these M113s and the M1117s. Those have helped them out quite a bit with medical evacuation and getting broken down vehicles out and being able to recover them. So I think those are going to prove very helpful for any future operations here coming up, because of what will be needed with a push offensively. Now, I do like seeing this logistic aspect. Your tooth to tail, that's what the U.S. has always been known for, is our logistic capability. And we're seeing this here. I mean, even with what we're giving them essentially the same ratio as how we would deploy our own units. So you're getting a lot of ammunition for the chain guns. You're getting a lot of tank ammunition. You're getting your armored vehicles for pushes into enemy territory, and the logistical capability to support them for sustained fighting. So I'm loving it. I'm loving seeing what we're able to get over there. That's surplus equipment that's already pre-positioned in most cases. So it'll be very interesting to see what else comes up with these next kind of releases. They're not releasing everything at once. They are going to have to refurbish probably some of these tanks. I bet you they're pulling some of these from storage. So I would be surprised if we saw these sent out soon. Now, the Bradleys, last I saw, it looked like they had already had a lot of these staged in Poland for their initial deliveries. So I'd say they probably got some of the T-72s, Bradleys, your M113s and your M1117s. I feel like those are pretty readily available. Same with the MRAPs and Humvees. Those are going to be something that the U.S. can really quickly get out. So that is definitely something that I think they've already started to receive deliveries on with some of these munitions that they're getting in these initial deliveries. Now, they are getting some more aircraft, and they did seem to find some more Mi-17s. That I think really has been some of the deciding factors for what has helped keep the lines so stable is how much surplus Soviet equipment's out there that we were able to find and get for the Ukrainians. That has been very helpful. And it's allowed some NATO nations who had held on to quite a bit of stock, like Poland namely, like the Twardy tanks that they handed over, I think it's the PT-81 Twardy, I think is what it's called. But that's just a Polish modernized T-72, I think, or T-80. And they had, I think, almost a couple thousand that they're slowly, getting rid of because they're buying Abrams, and they've bought a lot of Korean K2s. So I think we could see a lot more Polish arms supply too, if Korean arms manufacturers can get those Polish supplies, quickly rolling in, because they've set up contracts to produce in Poland. So really, it's just a matter of getting those facilities up and staffed. The Switchblades, love seeing more of those. Those have performed really well for Ukraine. I've seen a lot of successful use of those. I am not 100% familiar though with the Phoenix Ghost, Cyberlux, Altius, the Jump 20, Hornet, Puma. I'm not a whole lot of familiar with those. But the more aerial surveillance and the more intelligence they can gather with these systems, the better prepared that they'll be to be able to perform operations. And that's what's really going to benefit them as they move forward, working on any additional push to try to regain territory lost. Another thing that is really come in handy for them, which I love that somehow the eggheads at the DoD found a way to reverse engineer the harnesses of Soviet airplanes to accept HARMs and other U.S. and NATO missiles. That's really been the key factor in many cases keeping Ukraine in this fight. Because without those modifications and, those different mounts to be able to sync with not only the mounting onto the plane, but the systems that use it for their avionics to read with that, has been so much help in order to seed the battlefield in a way that would allow them to move. Now, this is kind of the last page here, but one thing, they don't really have a big capability of the maritime capability in tonnage, but they have done a lot of unmanned vessels, and they have been a pain in the ass for Russia. They have absolutely decimated the capability of the Black Sea Fleet and has forced them to tuck tail and run in the naval aspect. I mean, sure, the submarines are still there and able to be done in the sense of launching cruise missiles. But Ukraine did take out one. And so it shows that they have the capability. I mean, They're hitting refinery after oil refinery after oil refinery right now. They're going to cause a very large fuel shortage for the Russian military here soon, if it's not already starting to happen. I mean, gotta think. A lot of those refineries got funded, paid for, and built by Western companies. So, as the Russian oil pumps kind of go offline and refining capability goes offline, it's only a matter of time before, workers aren't going to want to go and, have to run the risk where a sport biplane carrying almost 1,000 pounds of explosives is going to come crashing in on them while they're working. They're just not going to want to deal with it. And you've already seen that in some of them. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, and it's going to provide them key capabilities that are necessary to be able to push back. Now, small arms, this is where it's big thing here now. We got another 10,000 javelins, 90,000 anti-armor systems with munitions, another 9,000 tube-launched wire-guided tow missiles, 35,000 grenade launchers and small arms, and 400 million plus rounds of ammunition and grenades, laser-guided rocket systems and munitions, rocket launchers and munitions, and anti-armor mines. That right there will perfectly show what's necessary Sorry. Just thought it was something that pertained to this video from Ground News, but it wasn't. It was something for the next one. So, only really big thing that I want to touch on here is going to be, this maritime coastal defense. They got 2 new Harpoon launchers with missiles. Another 62 boats. Those patrol boats are going to come in handy. It's not going to be something that they can use for far away. But if we go back to this map, if we look at Kherson, they could easily use that to get out here, try to sneak onto this jutting out part of the I think this is the Kinburn Spit, if I remember correctly. Could be wrong. But these are areas that they could use to really push on if they're going to make a push here in Kherson. Because if they are able to do a multi-prong attack where it forces Russia to divide its attention, where, they may start out with a larger force, maybe let's just say here near Lyman, okay? And maybe they're going to try to push towards Lysychansk or Severodonetsk. That would be something, because there's a large concentration of Russian forces. Svatov, these would be areas that could, if pushed hard enough and well enough, or even over here, like I was talking earlier, would be able to divert Russian resources away enough to where those coastal patrol boats, while they may not be packing a lot of armament, can at least pack a couple squads of soldiers. And how many was it that they were given? 62? So, let's say 24 people on each boat that are being deployed. Come on. Let's just say you throw 10 of those. That's 240 for a QRF that could hit right here, fast, go in while the main force has pushed across with the bridgehead and is pushing like up towards Krinky. Because if they can get up here and retake the Nova Kakovka area, they might be able to start doing repair work on the dam. And while it's going to take a long time to refill this reservoir in order to really have sustainable water levels, it needs to happen. Because of one thing, and really one thing only. Let's find the city at. Where is it at here? Where is it? Right here. This. Right here. That
is the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the ZNPP. Without steady water supply, a nuclear disaster the same size of Chernobyl could happen. And that was I was really hoping that they were going to be able to push through here when they had gotten that nice breakthrough here in Robotna. Because as you can see here, at one point, they had control of part of this trench line here. And I was hoping that was going to give them the ability to start running troops through and start clearing the trench lines, because Russians have had tunnels dug between lines, how it was like in World War I. Which is crazy, but, if those are connected, they could have very quickly, cleared a couple of these back areas, pushed through contingents, and then swept out, and been able to maybe even, push that wedge that they needed to really divert resources away from maybe like Kherson, that would allow them to hit more into Crimea and degrade defenses here. Or even possibly get a breakthrough here around Bakhmut or even Avdiivka. So that is what is the main situation here with Ukraine. We are finally getting arms deliveries back over to them, and thankfully lines have mostly stabilized. There's not been much more changes, and so Ukraine's holding, and that's good. It's very good news, because it means there's less likely of a chance that NATO partners would have to worry about an invasion from Russia because Ukraine was able to hold. And it means a greater chance for stability in the long term. So, everyone, glad you're able to join us. If you liked what you watched, leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment down below what you'd like to see next, anything that you have criticisms on, where you think I need to improve upon. Anything's well liked and well received, and I hope to see you all next time. Stay safe, and thanks for joining us here on Hearthside.